Hey everybody, it's Amy Fox with Work in Progress Texas, and I'm going live in our Facebook community. And the topic for today is around protein and why it's the secret ingredient for fat loss. It leads way more, there's way more to it than fat loss. But since we are here to share fat loss secrets and help people lose weight and keep it off, we wanted to give you our magic sauce. And at first I was thinking I'd be talking about protein and habit stacking, but I think there was so much meat and potatoes in this protein conversation that I wanted to focus and separate on that. So if I was thinking about our magic sauce and our formula when we work with clients, it's going to be based around prioritizing a couple of things. We've got our pillars of health, we've got our triangle of health. Like there's a couple of things and principles that we focus on, but habit stacking and a focus on protein is really those main components. And I think the third component would be resistance training. So if I'm thinking about the things that we work through people's lives with their lifestyle, with their nutrition, with their fitness, et cetera, all of that plays together. So why many people, when they come work with us, learn about these pillars, they see it's different than what they've done before. And the biggest missing link for many people is the fact that they're not consuming enough protein. So we want to talk about like why it matters for fat loss, why it matters for your goals, how to look at what breakfast, lunch, and dinner should look like when you're trying to figure out your new meal structure. And then, of course, I wanted to touch a little bit on affordability because I do know that some people think when we talk about, prioritizing protein, it sounds really expensive and it doesn't have to be super expensive. So I will touch on that slightly. So let me just share with you what I kind of have done in our, when I've shared, and I don't have this in presentation mode, maybe I can present it here so it's a little bit bigger. Let me just do presenter full screen. I don't really care. Okay, never mind. It's kind of, I'm just double checking how it looks on the screen there, but it's really what I'm getting at. The reason why I'm letting you see this is with the slides. I wanted to show this slide because it's a wonderful summary of why protein is the king of all macros and should be a priority for people. So when we talk about fat loss, it is the most satiating macronutrient. It takes the energy breakdown. There's like the thermal effect of food, and you actually burn calories digesting it. I mean, digesting food in general, but that is an aspect of it. And it helps to control cravings. So when we're talking about sugar cravings, when we're talking about overconsumption of other things, protein is going to help regulate that. And during a fat loss phase, it's the most satiating macronutrient. So it's going to help kind of regulate that hunger, because when you're in a fat loss phase, you should be feeling some hunger pains or some hunger signals. That actually means that you're in a fat loss phase if you have some of that hunger coming back to you. And we expect that. So we try to aid that with high volume foods like fruits and vegetables, and then protein for sure. I think everyone can agree that it's going to help with muscle building and repair. So when we're looking at body composition goals, a lot of the people who are wanting a specific shape and look to your body, it comes with building muscle. And so we need that protein content to build the muscle. It's literally how we build protein. It's the resistance training and eating enough protein. It helps to preserve, so when we're eating enough protein, helps to preserve muscle, prevent muscle loss, excuse me. And adequate protein will reduce the loss of muscle, giving that toned look. So those kind of go together, right? So it preserves muscle and also builds muscle. So even when you're at a point where you're happy with your physique, or maybe you're in older age, this is where maintaining what you already have is really important. Muscle tissue is really expensive. It's very easy for it to, it's hard to build, but it's a good thing to work on. And it's kind of a constant thing that you're working on to maintain and build. So when you get to that point of like, hey, my physique, I'm actually pretty content with that, my physique. Maybe you've reached a point where you don't want to get any leaner, like you feel pretty good, your jeans are looking good, you feel confident in a bathing suit or swimming or something like that. There is a point where you can be like, hey, I'm content. I'm happy with how I look. So now let's maintain my muscle with the amount of protein that I'm consuming. It's adaptable, meaning that it can accommodate any eating style. So even though we are not vegan or vegetarian I guess you could say, fans, or that's not really our primary focus. I usually will refer out at this point for a vegan person that I thought is really great. Like, she actually prioritizes protein significantly and has a very successful following for that. It's just not a principle that I necessarily believe in. I feel like there's a lot of, there is a lot of vitamin deficiencies and deficiencies that come from being a vegan and vegetarian, but it's possible. And so vegans just have to work a little bit harder and be a little more strategic on their protein sources and how to balance out the fat and carbohydrates. Because if you think about a vegan diet, it's going to be very, very carb heavy. So you have to figure out how to balance out those fuel sources. Nutrient timing. So consuming protein throughout the day supports protein synthesis. And that's basically everything we're talking about here, like your cell repair, your body, muscle building, preserving muscle, that's protein synthesis. So distributing it throughout the day within your snacks and within your meals is how you get the benefits of that. And then when you're at sleep, your body repairs and gets out the junk and refreshes and starts the next day. So it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And then, as we mentioned, again, appetite, it's going to help control appetite and give your body the nutrients they truly need. So when you are, for example, in a fat loss phase, we're reducing calories, we're limiting our carbohydrates and fats just a skosh. And that means that we're going to be getting the majority of our nutrients from the most nutrient dense source, which is going to always be animal protein. So when we look into some of the science of why protein rocks, let's see, I just was double checking that I wasn't on mute for some reason. I was just thinking I was on mute. That was a squirrel moment. I apologize. But basically, protein is the building blocks of all the cells. So, it's basically forming muscle tissue, organs, cells. They're essential for growth, repair, and maintenance of these structures. So we want to make sure we got the protein that's supporting the body. Like, literally, it is in your DNA. You need this stuff. Then there's hormone regulation, benefit of consuming enough protein. Certain proteins act as hormones and that regulate the physiological process, including growth, metabolism, and stress response. So examples would be insulin, growth hormone, and the thyroid hormones. So that's where we get some support there with our hormones. Believe it or not, enough consumption of protein helps with immune function. So this is important and contributes to the body's defense against infectious disease. So muscle building, eating enough protein, et cetera, is actually going to improve your immunity. And then there is an aspect of maintaining pH and fluid balance in your body when there's enough protein and muscle on your body to support that. So it's kind of like, hey, we're trying to keep the body in balance, the word homeostasis. And that's one way we do that. So I wanted to show just a couple of slides from the events that we do, kind of speaking to why protein is that king of all macros, why it is the magic source. So when we talk about like, how do I start building my meals around this? I will literally give this to you guys if you want this too. Just let me know. 125, let's go a little bit zooming in here. So protein-centered meals, like when we start talking about, oh my gosh, like how do I have to like revamp my whole kitchen? And it's not necessarily what we've talked about before on our previous Facebook Lives this year so far is we talked about customizing your own nutrition plan, finding foods that you like, trying things that maybe you've never tried before, expanding your horizons, etc. So when we talk about breakfast ideas, like usually what I like to aim for is about minimum of 30 grams of protein per meal. That's usually really helpful for women in particular, but just know that 30 to 50 gram mark is a beautiful spot. The reason there's a range there of 30 to 50 is just because based on, height and age and all of that too, that plays a role. Obviously, someone who's 5 foot is going to have different needs than someone who's 6 foot tall. There's differences there. So if you're thinking about like, how do I get 30 grams of protein in a meal? I mean, that could be a veggie omelet with 4 eggs, spinach, bell peppers, and cheese. It could be, if we're talking about a vegan world, tofu scramble with vegetables and mushrooms and onions and spinach. You can have steak and eggs with some sweet potatoes just because it's a breakfast time. It doesn't mean you have to have traditional breakfast meals. Cottage cheese pancakes topped with Greek yogurt and mixed berries. I mean, these combinations of protein sources is what can really beef up your protein content and make it super easy to add into your day. Then we would look at lunch ideas like a grilled chicken Caesar salad, A fantastic snack. I think lunch ideas really can be simplified. Salads, wraps, sandwiches. There's nothing wrong with those. It's just a matter of having enough protein amounts in there. So grilled salmon, steamed broccoli, lentil soup with Greek yogurt. Think about food combinations, right? Here's lentil soup with some Greek yogurt and whole grain bread. It's taking in other foods that might have protein content in them. So it's not just animal sources that you have to worry about. Even for people who like meat and enjoy meat, having a variety of other protein foods that are not animal based is totally cool. That's a way to kind of keep it spicy, keep it fun. And again, this list doesn't have recipes, but I'm happy to provide it to you guys. Dinner items: grilled chicken breast with roasted sweet potatoes and steamed broccoli, baked filet served with quinoa and sauteed spinach. I mean, most of the time you'll see dinners that have like a main protein source and then the sides like beef fajitas, baked chicken thighs with Brussels sprouts and quinoa. I mean, really to build that traditional American meal of a meat, potato, and veggie, or a meat, starch, and veggie. It's like the perfect combination and balance. And a lot of the times, if you know that you're hitting about that 30-gram mark at dinner, you don't really have to worry about the other sides and overeating them. A technique usually is to try to consume the protein source the most. Like usually what I'll do is eat the protein source, unless it's like mixed into like a taco bowl or something like that, but I'll dominantly focus on the protein source and take smaller bites of the other sources, the veggies or the starches that we would have, like rice or potatoes or whatever. And that kind of helps keep my palate fresh, because I think sometimes people experience palate fatigue where they're eating a protein source and their tongue, it's one reason why you really cannot overeat animal protein sources. Like it would be really hard. It would have to be like fried or dipped in cheese or something crazy, but it's super hard to overeat this stuff because it is so satiating. So what's cool about that is if you are not tracking calories, it's pretty simple to build your plate around a protein source and then focus on that protein source first before you dip into the other things. And if you're being in tune and staying engaged with your eating, you're not having a lot of distractions, you're taking time to chew things or whatever, you can start to kind of regulate and listen and do more of an intuitive eating approach, because you truly don't have to track forever. The tool of tracking is to help you start eyeballing things and saying that you're getting enough. And then you can use hand portion control, hand portion to measure out certain things. And of course, just using your intuition when you start to build some really good habits around your food. Because the whole goal of like working with a coach or having someone guide you on all of this is that we're helping you overcome some issues or some challenges you might have had, whatever your relationship with food is. How do we habit stack and get some good lifestyle behaviors built into your schedule and all the chaos of life, and then give you ideas like this, where you have like, hey, what am I supposed to eat? What am I supposed to break down? How am I supposed to eat it, etc. Right? So that's kind of the stuff that I wanted to show you on the slides or whatever. So when we talk about how to eat more protein, basically picking off of like including protein rich foods in every single meal. Think about eggs, poultry, fish, tofu, beans, lentils, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, nuts, and seeds. When you're in a fat loss phase, ideally you maybe would prioritize leaner protein sources. So like fish, poultry, beef or pork, leaner cuts of beef and pork, tofu, tempeh, and low-fat dairy products. But most of the time, if you're not in a fat loss phase, you can have a little bit more fattier items too, which is fine. Plan your protein snacks. Think about like Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, eggs, protein bars, edamame, nuts to kind of boost some protein intake between meals. Now, what most people find is when they start to increase their protein intake, they don't necessarily need a lot of snacking, which is kind of like ideal. We prefer you to have like a good solid meal, eat your breakfast, eat your lunch, eat your dinner, and have minimal snacking, but snacking is part of it. You can be on the go. Think of things like when you don't have control over every food source or you're on the go or something, what can you pack and take with you? I would say protein into your breakfast, like starting your day off with a solid protein breakfast is a great way to set the day off right. You're not going to have crazy insulin spikes. You're not going to crash after you will like with a pancake breakfast or something like that. So think about like, if we can just start with breakfast and get good at breakfast, Like just focus on that meal first, and then you work your way to lunch, and then you work your way to dinner. And that's what we do with a lot of our clients is we like slowly build them to that next level so they're not overwhelmed with 3 meals a day. It's like, nope, let's just focus on 1 meal a day, and then we'll build from there. As I mentioned too, choosing protein sources that are not necessarily animal based. So you can incorporate whole grains and legumes into your meals. Examples are like quinoa, lentils, chickpeas, black beans, and edamame. So to me, like my favorite is like a taco bowl with rice and beans and chicken and peppers and guacamole, or maybe guacamole, sour cream. And that's like one of my favorite kind of combinations. And that's like all the good things in one. It's like high in fiber, high in protein, balanced carbs, feels good. You're super satiated. In the pinch, as you're starting to get used to eating more protein, a lot of the times we find that people need some protein shakes or helps. Like, hey, this one's like 42 grams of protein in this one here. So sometimes we might need a supplement with a protein shake of some kind. We certainly have brand preferences that we like, that we want to recommend. We try to look at affordability and quality as far as a good suggestion. Now, some people might drink whey protein and have kind of a bloating effect or not feel fantastic. So sometimes we've got to look at different options, or maybe a higher quality version that might reduce that, or even consider a vegan protein source for shakes if that's necessary. But I've even found like Fairlife, I mean, this is milk with protein in it. It just kind of depends on each person's individuality. That's why we have to always treat everybody separately as far as who can tolerate what. But sometimes when you're increasing protein intake, it can take a while. So we'll utilize a protein shake to help kind of buffer in some of the gaps. So let's say everyone's getting 30 grams of protein at each meal, and all they need is that one little protein shake to get that last like 20 grams or something. And that's what they're perfect for. Let's see my notes here. So protein snacks, it's good to focus on protein snacks as opposed to carbohydrate heavy snacks. So I would choose snacks that help keep you full and satiated between meals, which is what protein is going to do anyways. So you would pair your fruits and vegetables with like nut butter, cheese, Greek yogurt. That's kind of a good balanced snack of healthy fats and carbohydrates and protein. So just know like, hey, whatever snack you're having, you could probably add some kind of protein source in there too. When you're looking at salads, like that's a great way to enhance a salad is to add a protein source, grilled chicken, tofu, hard-boiled eggs, chickpeas, nuts and seeds, shrimps, whatever that looks like. And then I think when we talk about trying to keep things simple, but keep things interesting, it would be experimenting with different cooking methods. So grilling, baking, sauteing, steaming, air fryer, whatever. There's so many different ways to make something. You can also make dupes. Like if you're somebody who loves chicken nuggets, it's like, okay, let's find an easy recipe to do at home and throw them in the air fryer. Maybe that's better than buying the prepackaged frozen stuff right now, if you were to get organic, like gluten-free chicken nuggets, those are almost like $11 for a bag of those. Like there are ways to save money too by prepping some of the things yourself, if that's something you're willing to try. And then I would say we want to make sure that we are drinking enough water through all of this too, to help proper digestion. Like when we talk about like getting used to having more protein, certainly the hydration is going to help us with our digestive system. But just quickly, I want to touch on before I wrap it up here, how do we look at affordability when it comes to protein sources? I know that inflation is really high. Believe me, we feel it a lot right now. And certainly want to honor that affordability matters. So sometimes when we're looking at what do we do to make the most bang for our buck, there's aspects of like, when can you do organic? When can you not? The Environmental Working Group website is a really great website to kind of figure out what's the dirty dozen, what's the clean 15. The best way to kind of shop for fruits and vegetables. We would always recommend that you also wash your vegetables, like with, soap and water with some kind of maybe a vegetable wash or vinegar or something like that to kind of get extra pesticides and junk off. So definitely cleaning your veggies and stuff. But when it comes to animals, certainly if you can go organic and grass-fed, that's going to be most optimal protein sources. So usually what helps with that is buying in bulk, always looking for sales and specials. You can choose less expensive cuts of meat like chicken thighs, drumsticks, pork shoulder. Those can be another way to kind of like spread the love and change the flavor too, which is kind of nice. If you buy frozen sources like chicken, fish fillet, and vegetables, They're often more affordable, and of course they last a little bit longer. Then if you're buying store brands, like a lot of the times when we go to HEB, which is like the best grocery store in the whole wide world, we will often buy the HEB brand because that will be more affordable. So what's cool about HEB too is like they see all the patterns and trends of popular items like protein waffles, for example, and then they make their own. So it's pretty rad. Then of course, if you're trying to save some money, with animal protein being a little bit more, I mean, I would still say like buying locally and going to like farmers markets or finding a farm near you is another way to do it, or splitting a cow or sharing things like that. But you can also, like I've talked about, incorporating plant-based protein sources to beef up the protein. No pun intended. I'm a dork, I know. So that's another way to kind of like help share the cost a little bit, is looking for some of those cheaper options, but good quality options too. And then when you look at canned or dried beans, that's another great source when we talk about like black beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, really easy. I mean, that's why like chili is so great. And you can still make stuff that's good for the summertime too. And then, yeah, shopping at like discount stores, farmers markets, trying to buy local if you can. Certainly we are huge supporters of farmers, and we love our farmers so, so much. So if we can find someone local, we always try. And then I think planning meals in advance helps to make sure that you don't make impulse purchase throughout the week. Fast food and other things add up. It might feel cheap in the moment, but ultimately it can add up. You're usually paying extra on something when you're eating out or eating fast food. So try to have some strategy behind that. And then limiting processed and convenience foods, because prepackaged foods, like for example, when you see the pineapple or the deli meat or certain things that are cut up for you, there's going to be an upmark on that because it took somebody time to package it and put it all together. So it's kind of like, hey, cut your own pineapple. You probably save yourself a couple dollars. Maybe you get deli meat from the actual deli as opposed to that. And, you know, honestly, prepackaged stuff like frozen dinners and other things, like if you start doing price comparisons, those actually add up, you know, over time. So buying whole food sources, you know, obviously frozen fruits and veggies are a way to keep them and store them easily without them going bad, because that's the hardest part with veggies and fruits. They go bad if you don't get to them. But luckily, with your protein sources, you can freeze a lot of things, make them last. I'm a huge fan of like when we start talking about buying in bulk, it's like Costco memberships, Sam's Club memberships, and just kind of, you know, really trying to get your bang for your buck and being conscious of other things that you're spending your money on. I mean, alcohol adds up. Lots of sugary desserts and treats that we don't need adds up. Starbucks coffee adds up. Like there's lots of luxuries that can add up. So you have to decide and prioritize, is healthy eating, does that important to me? Like, is my health important to me? What can I prioritize for my health? In fact, I would even say like, don't like put this, like stop buying supplements. I'd rather you put your money towards your grocery bill than your supplements. So maybe that's another talk to go kind of expand on, you know, finances and how to be a little bit, you know, how to be smart with it, have fun with it, but also, you know, take responsibility that your health matters, and investing in quality food. Not only do you vote with your dollar, but that also means that you're taking your health. And we don't have time, you know, when you get sick, that's all you focus on is getting healthy, right? So it's kind of like you do the best you can with what resources you have to eat as good as you can to take care of the body that you have, right? Because that's what matters most, is the effort. We can't guarantee that we won't have disease or things won't come, but we know processed food, too much sugar, too much alcohol plays against us. So it's kind of like, where do you want to prioritize your dollars, you know? So, okay, well, that is the protein conversation. I hope the mixture of topics kind of showing the value of protein, why it matters. It's imperative for people to prioritize this if they want their health to get on track. If you have any custom questions that you want to break down for yourself and your individual self and needs, let us know. We are always about free food and fitness audits if you want to have us spend some time with you and look at what you're currently doing and what edits we can make to make you better. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. I know this went a little bit longer than normal, but I hope it was of value, and thank you for watching.